Retro.
Hello there. This is James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. Their behavior is continuously unexpected. So uncivilized.
Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And this episode will feature part 6 of our Revenge of the Sith series. But before we get into Palpatine's continued seduction of Anakin to the dark side, Jay, remind everybody where they can find us on social media.
Absolutely. We don't need to convince anyone, hopefully, how easy it is. It is Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust.
All right, the dish is aligned, the signal is boosted to maximum output, the shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. And as I was just saying a moment ago, this is part 6 of our year-long series on Revenge of the Sith. And we'll be breaking down, we're basically at the halfway point in this movie right now. And we are setting up the third and final act with everything that's about to happen here. This is a fantastic segment, Jay. They all are good when we do these, but another great discussion coming up.
Absolutely. Yes. And always so much fun to get our guests on here to get their take and their insights on things. And this one definitely is a great one.
All right. Well, let's not keep everybody waiting. Here we go. This is Revenge of the Sith, part 6. So we are thrilled to welcome back to Podcast Stardust, Craig Dickinson from Reading Between the Reels. Craig, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. I love this movie so much. And what a great segment to talk about, guys. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. We're excited that you're back.
Yeah, we definitely make sure that you get a segment every year now that we do these. And I'm really thrilled that you can make it this month. Before we dive into the segment itself, though, we like to talk to our guests a little bit about their experience with Revenge of the Sith. Jay, you want to go ahead and kick off our questions for Craig?
Oh, yeah, I would love to. All right, Craig. So here we go. What was your first experience seeing Revenge of the Sith? How old were you? What are your memories? Who did you go with? All of the details.
Okay. Saw it in the theater when it came out, probably first or second day. I guess I would have been 29 when it came out. I mean, I'm a Gen Xer. I grew up with the original trilogy, and so I was eagerly anticipating the prequels when they came out and watched them several times in the theater. I saw this one, I think, 3 times in the theater. Thoroughly enjoyed it. This was one that I still have the t-shirt from it. I remember that was like when Suncoast Motion Picture Company was a place
Nice.
that they had, the vintage looking shirt, and now it actually is vintage because I wore it just like a week or so ago. And but yeah, no, it's this got me back into buying action figures again. Like even the Phantom Menace thing didn't grab me, but this did. I was like, I need a new Vader. No, I love this movie. I was thoroughly impressed by it. It exceeded my expectations when I saw it in the theater. So this where I rank it in Star Wars, it's right up there. Like it's probably like 1A maybe for me. I really, really like this movie.
That's awesome. Did you get a chance to watch it again when it came out just recently in the theaters in the re-release?
So I missed it, but as you guys know, I show this movie to my classes. I watched it 5 times this year, and shortly after, so I kind of had a hard time even though it's a theater experience and it's different. The theater that it was playing at near us to it's not a great theater. If it had been a really good theater, I probably would have gone. But no, I was like, I've seen it a bunch. I'm gonna watch it 5 times, so I did not go this time.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay.
You got a perfect platform to enjoy it.
Yeah. Okay. Now that you brought up how many times you show it to your classes, how many times do you think you've seen this movie now?
I mean, so I mean, it's over 100, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so I've lost count.
Wow. Okay. That's fantastic. I love it. All right. Well, then you're well qualified to answer this question. What is your favorite scene from Revenge of the Sith?
Oh my goodness. There's so many of them.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's rough. I mean, can I do better than the duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin? Can I do better than the "You Are My Brother"? I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
scene, if I have to pick one, it's that, because that just encapsulates all of that's the prequels. That's what we wanted. That's the scene we were building towards. And there's legitimate emotion that comes from that scene, and as a viewer, like you've absolutely empathize with that moment. So I'm gonna pick that.
That's for sure. Do you ever find that your vision of what, your internal vision of what your favorite scene is changes with your evolution as a person? Like, has it ever changed from one year to the next or one showing to the next or, kind of mood you're in? Because that happens for me sometimes. That's why
Yeah.
I'm always curious.
No, for sure. I mean, you absolutely put your life experiences into every viewing that you have, and like I'm sure, watching that movie now as a parent is very different than watching it before when I first saw it.
Mhm.
The whole thing with like his wife gonna die, and the childbirth, all of that. Yes, you have to look at that. Can you kind of justify his, Anakin's choices in that way? If my own kids were at risk, would I make those choices? So
Mhm.
yeah, that it does. I don't think I would, but, at least you begs the question.
Right, right. It's always that philosophical underlying kind of thing. So, springboarding off of that, then, our last major question for you right now, anyways, is who is your favorite character in this movie?
Uh, Again, you guys, this is so hard. I'm I'm
No
gonna
easy
go with Anakin.
questions, no wrong answers.
I
So
I'm
That's
gonna
right.
go I'm gonna
That's
go with
right.
Anakin just because, like, for the longest time, when I first saw this movie, like, it kinda solidified for me that Anakin was my just favorite Star Wars character, period. It's since I'm back to Luke. When I was growing up, it was Luke, and then Han, and then Luke, and Anakin. But yeah, Anakin, I like Anakin the most. I feel bad for him.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yep.
You know, as we've been doing this series over the course of this year, I've grown a new appreciation for Anakin and everything that he's trying to balance, everything that he's trying to make work, the competing demands of the Jedi, the Chancellor, his wife, what he wants out of life, what he's hoping to achieve, and trying not to disappoint anyone. And then ultimately he comes down to a point where he has to make a choice, and it's a bad
Mhm.
choice the way he makes it. But at any rate, that's one of the benefits of doing these type of series is breaking these things down into these segments and spending so much time on the movie is that you really get to appreciate everyone's point of view a little bit more
That's
than you did
true.
before.
And
And
there's
the
so much
thing about
layering. Yeah, go ahead, Dennis, sorry.
I would say the other thing about Craig, your choice of favorite scene. One of my favorite scenes recently has become the farewell between Anakin and Obi-Wan as Obi-Wan's
Mm,
leaving to confront Grievous, simply because it's the last time those two exchange kind words with each other. Talking about Obi-Wan saying, I'm very proud of you. I raised you from since you were a small boy. I've taught you everything I know. Anakin apologizing him for disappointing, and this, that, and the other. And then you get that book into the scene you're talking about, Craig, where it's the other side of the relationship. There's some resentments. There's some things uh, that have been between them that they didn't address in that final moment, and so that's the other half of the relationship. I mean, everyone we're close to, we have all these fantastic things with, but then there are some things that you do have to address from time to time, and they didn't get those out and until it was too late. And so anyway, I like kind of how your choice bookended what we were talking about in our very last episode in this series.
Yeah, it's very true. I was
Mhm.
just going to add that there's so much layering, I think, to Anakin's character as well, just because of the Clone Wars and also the novelization and just everything else, and just reanalyzing these. It's definitely lent a lot more of a very deep sense of psyche to the character.
Mhm. Indeed. All right. Well, let's get into this segment. We are picking up at 1 hour and 54 seconds, and this will run to 1 hour, 10 minutes, and 52 seconds. So almost a perfect 10 minutes. We start off in the Jedi Temple, and Commander Cody interjects into a Jedi meeting via hologram to report that to Mace Windu that Obi-Wan Kenobi has engaged General Grievous and that they have begun their attack. Mace then turns to Anakin and tells him to inform the Chancellor, look for clues as to what the Chancellor's intentions might be. And so Anakin runs off to complete that part of his task. Mace then turns to the other assembled Jedi, whether they're in person or appearing via hologram, and he says he senses a plot to destroy the Jedi, and the dark side of the Force surrounds the Chancellor. So Ki-Adi-Mundi goes on to say that the Chancellor should be removed from the office if he doesn't give up his power after Grievous is destroyed. And then Mace concurs and says the Jedi Council will have to take control of the Senate in order to secure a peaceful transition. And Yoda cautions everybody that this is going to take them to a very, very dark place. So they're going to have to be mindful. Craig, what do you think about this transition scene? It seems to set a lot of stuff up that we're about to see coming up in the movie. And particularly Mace's premonition here about a plot to destroy the Jedi.
Yeah, that always felt odd to me, the way he says that so adamantly. It's like if you sense that, did he just now sense that, or is that something that's been brewing for a while? And then to go into essentially what can be viewed as a coup is really interesting, especially because later on we're going to hear Sheev tell Anakin the Jedi are taking over, and there's seeds of that here. So I think it's a really interesting scene that doesn't necessarily paint the Jedi in the best light.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that you referred to Palpatine as Sheev and didn't even drop his last name. Well done. And two, in a second, a little bit later in this segment, we're going to see, or actually the segment when Anakin shows up at the office and we see Palpatine looking at a screen. We can't tell what he's looking at, but I can't help but get the feeling that he was eavesdropping on this conversation here based on what he'll say later in the movie. Jay, what do you think about all of this? Is, you've got the Jedi, they're at a turning point in the war. They're about to win it with Grievous's destruction. And now they have to figure out what to do next with the Republic.
Right. Well, there's a couple things going on here. And, I often refer to the novelization in reference to some of the read between the lines kind of thing, to steal your name there, Craig, a little bit. But, there's this whole thing about getting Anakin to go to the Chancellor to give him this news because they want to see his reactions and they want to make sure that Anakin picks up on every word and every behavior and all of these things. And, this just for Sheev, for Palpatine, this just tells him that much more very in detail that, yeah, they're spying on me. Because why couldn't they have just sent him this in, a holo message or in an encrypted message or something like that, just to say, hey, this is happening? Why did they need to send Anakin as, the messenger boy to deliver this personally kind of thing? So there's that. And then the other part of this too, that you talked about with Mace, we always refer to Mace's force power of sensing shatter points. And I wonder if that's where this is coming from, and that there's sort of a nod, kind of an Easter egg to that, in that now that all of these kind of things are happening and coming together, is that vision or that feeling for Mace is becoming a little bit more clear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a couple things there. One, when was it that Yoda and Mace were talking and Mace says, I feel like our ability to sense the Force has been diminished? And Yoda's like, no need to report that to the Senate until there's something actually to report on that. And so I think maybe perhaps the dark side is interfering with whatever type of Shatterpoint ability that Mace Windu has. And two, I think there's something to the fact that, what was it, 20 minutes ago in this movie, Mace was in a gunship with Obi-Wan and Yoda talking about how it's probably a mistake putting the Chancellor and Anakin together.
Yes.
Yeah,
dangerous.
Does dangerous. I don't trust him. And Obi-Wan sticks up for Anakin. And here he is saying, go talk to the Chancellor and tell us what his reaction is to this. He'll give us clues as to what he's got what he intends next. So yeah, not Mace's best moment in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, then moving on here, we get to Palpatine's office, and Anakin arrives, and he reports to the Chancellor that Obi-Wan is engaged General Grievous, and Palpatine's response is like, well, we can only hope he's up to the task. And he's making his final sales pitch to Anakin here in this scene. Yeah, and he's troubled that the council doesn't appreciate Anakin's talents, asks if he wonders why they haven't made Anakin a Jedi Master yet. Anakin's response is, well, I wish I knew. And he gets the feeling that he's being excluded more and more from the council. And he also knows that there are things about the Force that the Jedi aren't telling him. And Palpatine doubles down on what he said to Anakin earlier. They don't trust you. They see your future. They know your power will be too strong to control. And Anakin must break through the fog of the lies the Jedi have created around him. And Palpatine offers to let Anakin know about the subtleties of the Force, how to embrace a larger view. And his mentor has taught him everything about the Force. If you want to know the great mystery, you have to embrace all aspects, including the dark side and all this. And so eventually Anakin puts 2 and 2 together and realizes that Palpatine is in fact the Sith Lord. And there's a whole lot more stuff that goes on here, but I don't want to spend the next 5 minutes summarizing this scene. Craig, what do you think about this final push that Palpatine makes and Anakin's initial reluctance to take him up on the offer?
Yeah. And as you were describing that scene, I had an epiphany, and I can't believe this is the first time I've thought of this. Is you mentioned that that Palpatine says, let's hope he's up for the task, referring to Obi-Wan, and I just connected the dots that earlier Palpatine had said, I want Anakin to go and take on Grievous, and so even that little dig is like, yeah, it should have been you. If it was you, it wouldn't have been a problem. But since it's my second choice, we'll see if he's good enough. If he's as good as you. And so this entire thing is just flattery, flattery, flattery. The Jedi don't trust you. Flattery, flattery. Jedi don't trust you. They can't control you. I don't want to control you. You should give in to your anger. Even that, later on it's like, I should kill you and whatever. It's like, you know what? You should. Absolutely. I'm not going to say no to you no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so true.
Jay, what is your take on that?
Well, there's so many things. I think about Anakin in the Clone Wars, and I think about how he was truly the Jedi with no fear, and that he was always upholding everything that the Jedi stood for, the ideals, all of the beliefs. And then this whole movie is just a real turnabout of events, obviously, and to say the least. And as far as Palpatine kind of encouraging him in these ways, as you said, Craig, kind of telling him, yeah, it should have been you, it should have been this, it should have been that. And yes, you need to do this to ensure your future. And Anakin even saying that he knows there's things about the Force that the Jedi aren't telling him. He has tried to find ways to save Padme, and he knew that there were pieces of information that he could only obtain as a Jedi Master. And again, I'm referring to the novelization here, but and then he was basically railroaded into not being able to do that by not becoming a master. And so he knows that there are things that they're not telling him. He can't access those things. He still wants to uphold what the Jedi have taught him. He still wants to uphold the light side of the Force. And so that's where, and again, the epiphany for me watching this even just tonight before we started recording was that Anakin doesn't want to go to the dark side. He wants to do everything he possibly can to uphold everything that he's been brought up with. And then I'm sure he's hearing that echo in the back of his mind that you are the chosen one. You can't go down that path. But yet, Palpatine is dangling this for him, and it's so hard for him to see where, that line is becoming so blurred. And, Craig said, you should do this. This is what you should be doing. And, almost like saying to Anakin, you have to make that choice. And I applaud you for that. Even if it means, whatever. But I don't know if you guys noticed too, when Palpatine and Anakin are talking, Palpatine kind of like his hands sort of keep gripping the hem of his coat. And it's almost like, is he ready to pull that lightsaber out
Yeah.
like he did, with the council and with Mace? Like if it did actually come to that, would he have done that? Because you see him fiddling. So Craig, you've noticed that before as well?
No, as you're saying that, I'm like, I can picture the shot that you're talking about, like he's in
Oh, yeah.
profile, and I can see, yep. And I hadn't thought of it that way, but now now I'm not going to be able to see it any other way.
So, Craig, you brought up the whole point about the earlier part of this movie where he basically says to Anakin, I would have serious doubts of something along the lines of the Jedi Council's collective wisdom if they didn't send you on this assignment. And then Anakin goes to the Jedi Council and says, the Chancellor's requested that I take this on. And then the Council's like, nah, we're not going to do what the Chancellor says. We're going to send an older, more experienced Jedi Master after this. Obi-Wan should go. So yeah, we're going to send Obi-Wan, which is a great observation here. Do you think Sheev made that recommendation knowing that the Jedi would, or in fact, reject it, and then just kind of fuel this entire sales pitch that he's been given to Anakin, that they don't trust you, they know you're too powerful, they fear you, stick with me, I'm the guy that's going to help you achieve your potential.
Absolutely. Knowing who this guy is and all the rest of the 4D chess that he's playing, I 100% agree that he's, hey, let's come up with something they're going to say no to. And then you should go ask that question, knowing he's going to get a no, because he's just playing Anakin like a fiddle.
And then the other big element that Palpatine, the other big card, I should say, that he plays in this is he says, only through me can you learn the power to save your wife. And then later specifically mentions Padme by name on this. Okay, I realize this question calls for speculation and we don't have a definitive answer to this. How did he know about this? Either of you have any ideas?
Jay, you want to go?
Well, I mean, I don't really have any philosophical kinds of things other than to say the Force,
Yeah.
So, but I don't have a specific, like, put my finger kind of thing on it. So I'm eager to hear what your thoughts are, Craig.
I mean, there's not a whole lot of evidence to support this, but I love the theory that Palpatine is putting those images in Anakin's mind, that he's the one transmitting those visions. And just to manipulate. I mean, it fits with his character. I don't know if that's a Force power we've been able to see that you could do that, but the dark side is a path to many abilities, some consider to be unnatural. So, because that's the thing that's hard to tell with him, because Palpatine is, yes, he's a master planner, but he's also great at adjusting on the fly and taking advantage of things that, I could use this to do that. But yeah, how he figures that out, I think, you could very easily see that he's picking up on and he knows about Anakin's relationship with Padme.
Right? This one I'm getting at. I was like, how did he know about this? A couple things come to mind for me, which is, one, he's known Anakin since Anakin was like, 9 years old? And kids cannot help but talk about their crushes when it comes down to it. And then later in life, once we get to the Clone Wars and everything else, and all of a sudden, I'm sure he's got someone keeping tabs on where Anakin is, and then, he happens to be over in the apartments that the senators all live in. He's able to put 2 and 2 together and figure that out. But for him to lay it out there in the way that, the Jedi have no clue about. I mean, even Obi-Wan Kenobi has his suspicions, but he doesn't know that those two are married. And this is not until later in this movie that Obi-Wan even has the epiphany that Anakin is the father of Padme's child, that she's, pregnant with at the time. And, Anakin's the father, isn't he? I'm so sorry. And that point is like, Palpatine doesn't even like raise it as a question. He says it definitively in this area. And I have no doubt, Craig, that he's the one that's been feeding Anakin these visions of Padme dying in childbirth. And it becomes, in that way, it's not a self-fulfilling prophecy, because it's not a prophecy. It's just he
works like that though. Yeah.
Right. He gave him these visions and then he steered him in that direction. He made him afraid of something happening and then he brought it about in that way.
Yeah. Well, something that just occurred to me too, the fact that, because we hear at the beginning of the film that he told, that Anakin told Sheev about the Sand People.
Yes.
He didn't tell Obi-Wan about that.
That's true.
I don't think he told anybody about that. So
he told Padme about it.
He told Padme, right?
Yeah.
But that's a pretty intimate, embarrassing, horrific thing that you did, and you told that guy. What else are you telling him?
Right. And Palpatine only brought it up earlier in this movie when when Obi-Wan was unconscious. He took your arm, you wanted revenge. It was only natural. Remember the Sand People? I mean,
line, yeah. It's only natural.
Yes, he's just brushing the dust off of him. And a couple more things here too. I don't know how true this is, but I had heard somewhere along the line that the wedding on Naboo between Anakin and Padme, the preacher or the officiant of their wedding was someone that Sheev actually appointed himself, and was working undercover for him, and that's who reported back. So I don't know if that's true, and I don't even remember where I heard that from. But I don't know if either one of you have heard that. But then also to your point about talking to Anakin, as far as the fact that he's known him since he was 9, that's another thing that he kind of puts a spin on, using that in this scene, is that he says, ever since I've known you, you've been searching for a life greater than an ordinary Jedi, and it's like he's this old kindly uncle. Even when he says, the power to save Padme, he gives him that nice little grin, like, I love you, my son, kind of thing, and I can help you. But yeah.
Here's the other thing about this scene. This is when Anakin puts 2 and 2 together and realizes that Palpatine is in fact the Sith Lord.
Mm-hmm.
What do y'all think about that? I mean, considering that we just had the opera scene before this, where Palpatine is talking about the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, Darth in all caps, on all this. And then, he had this power that could keep people from, that he loved, from dying. And Anakin's response is like, is it possible to learn this power? And Sheev's response is, not from a Jedi here. And it's only just now that Anakin is making this realization. And okay, I'm not asking this question to pick on Anakin, the writing, or anything else. But what does that tell you about their relationship here?
So, Craig, do you want to go first?
The fact that he didn't know, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that he didn't know, that he's just now realizing it after everything that's happened between them.
You feel like you should have picked up on that. I think he's he's lying to himself a little bit. He's definitely in a place where he's indecisive about what to do, because the next thing that happens, he goes back and reports to Mace, and he's like, I think he's the Sith Lord. So even though he's been given, in this case now 2 times, saying, hey, I can help you, there's hints in the opera scene, and pretty much straight up tells him here, Anakin still wants to do the right thing. And I love that you brought that up earlier, Dennis. Like, he still considers himself a hero, still considers himself a good guy and a Jedi, and wants to do the right thing, but he doesn't know what to do about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for Anakin, he was giving Palpatine the benefit of the doubt, because you go into his office and his private chambers and everything, and he has Sith artifacts everywhere. So, it's not like Anakin knew that Palpatine was very well educated in these arcane pieces of knowledge, and he was kind of an aficionado of all of the history of the Sith. But I don't think that he put that together, because I think he just looked right over that as, this is just another story that maybe he learned, but now I'm intrigued by it because this has something to do with something that I need, until he gets that epiphany, as you said, Dennis, and puts that 2 and 2 together. So I think he was just way too close to him to be able to see it. It's kind of like not being able to see the nose, on your face, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not to be able to see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
One of the comments I got to make about this scene, though, is that, as maligned as the prequels can be for the quality of the acting, I think this scene is absolutely fantastic. And Ian McDermott, Hayden Christensen, just they're playing off each other with their lines in here, and the way that they exchange things. And it's just, some of the things that stuck out to me on this viewing was when Palpatine is saying, only through me you can achieve a power greater than any Jedi. I learned to know the dark side of the Force, and you'll be able to save your wife from certain death. And he kind of delivers that with this, like, you can just see the temptation dropping off that line. And Hayden's response to that, the way he says, "What did you say?" It's just like, he's floored in that moment. Like, your wife, you could see Hayden, he sold that so well. And then later, when he has that epiphany, and in one motion, when he ignites his lightsaber and says, "You're the Sith Lord," it's just like, you can see how thunderstruck he is in that moment. And they didn't accompany it with any music from John Williams when he has that realization, which they do frequently in Star Wars to highlight a reveal or something. Just think about when Luke finds out that Darth Vader is his father, you get the dark side thing. Dun, 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 dun. Right after that, they lit Hayden's cell, that line, in this moment, and it works so incredibly well. Either of you have any other observations on their acting abilities in the scene?
I always just thought it was great, personally.
Yeah, it's really good.
I know I didn't leave a whole lot of room to say anything else there,
Yeah,
but
we do get. I was just gonna say we do get Palpatine's theme, but not until the very end of that scene. So it is interesting that you don't hear it there. That would have been a perfect place for the needle drop, like the "I am your father" thing. But no, we don't need to do that.
Well, we're spending a lot of time on the scene, but I think it's worth it. And the other part of this is when Palpatine says, "Are you going to kill me?" And Anakin's response is, "I would certainly like to." And then you can just see Palpatine chewing that, like he's devouring how delicious that is to him. "I know you would. I can feel your anger. It gives you focus, makes you stronger." It's just beautiful. The way, it's for something that's so dark. It's just the way he delivers it is incredible.
Yeah. Well, now that you say that, it's true. I mean, Ian McDermott is just masterful in that subtle transition from warm mentor, to sinister manipulator. Like you said, his voice lowers, his pacing slows, every line is loaded with intent. And even now, as I'm thinking about it with Anakin, he's got these conflicted expressions, uncertain body language, which is not like Anakin. I mean, he's usually striding around like he owns the joint. You know what I mean? So yeah, now that you're kind of framing it that way, it really does hit home a lot more.
Yeah, and Jay, you can see, as you were saying earlier about how Anakin wanted to do the right thing in this movie, you can see at the end of the scene how rattled he is by everything. And, he says that he's going to turn Palpatine over to the Jedi Council. And Palpatine just wants, "Of course you should, but you're not sure of their intentions, are you?" And so, Palpatine keeps making that last bit of the sales pitch. And then Anakin's response is, "I will quickly discover the truth of this." Palpatine's response is, "You have great wisdom, Anakin. Know the power of the dark side. The power to save Padme." And you can tell it's just like, as Anakin's leaving there, Palpatine's like, "Made the sale. I landed this one." Just a matter of time.
Yeah. Well, he gives them, empathy, false promises, and emotion, and Anakin wants to believe. So, I mean, that's where the sales pitch is masterful right there.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Well, we should probably move on because we have a couple more scenes to talk about here. And we end up at Utapau, and we rejoin Obi-Wan as he pursues General Grievous. And Grievous is on his wheelbike. Obi-Wan is on the Varactyl. Obi-Wan catches up to Grievous and seizes his electrostaff and begins attacking Grievous with it, which causes Grievous to eventually lose control of the bike. And then they both end up jumping off onto the platform near Grievous's starfighter. And then we get their climactic duel with Grievous throwing Obi-Wan around a little bit. And then ultimately, Obi-Wan, using the Force to summon a blaster, is hanging off the edge of that platform and shooting Grievous in the gut and putting an even to the general of the army here. One of the things that kind of stood out to me here is this, just like, the promotions that came for Grievous ahead of Revenge of the Sith is how much of a Jedi killer he was. And you could kind of see how much he was actually enjoying beating up Obi-Wan in this scene. I don't know that there's a lot of themes to necessarily talk about here, but Craig, I'd love to get your take on General Grievous and the way he was portrayed in this movie. What did you think about him?
I mean, I like him a lot. He is definitely scary to a point, but he also kind of has to be disposable, which is an interesting mix. My favorite part of this scene is actually when Obi-Wan kicks him when he's on the ground and then screams in pain because, dude, he's made out of metal. It's Obi-Wan he takes Obi-Wan to the limit, though. I mean, if it wasn't for, a little bit of handhold on that ledge, Obi-Wan would have been dead. He misses. Grievous throws that punch that would have obliterated his skull. It's a life and death situation. I think it's handled really, really well. If it wasn't for the fact that if his armor had been held up a little, would have been a little bit better constructed, where he couldn't just peel it open so he can expose his his organs or whatnot. He'd still be coming after him.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know that the Separatist Alliance really counted on someone prying open his rib cage in
Yeah.
the middle of
Right.
battle there, right? Do you feel like Grievous came off as threatening in this movie, or because I'm just thinking back to the scenes we see him, in the when we see him on the bridge of the invisible hand, he runs away from the Jedi. He doesn't really
Mhm.
engage with them much, and then he has a saber duel with Obi-Wan, then he loses two hands, and then he flees again, and then he finally gets defeated here. And I think there are a lot of other media, Grievous's reputation is built up a lot, but in this movie, did he really live up to the hype?
Yeah, that's a great point, Dennis. I'm going to jump in, Jay, if that's okay.
Oh,
Having
yeah.
seen the Gendy Tartakovsky, Clone Wars show where he
Mhm.
made his debut, and he was terrifying in that. And seeing that first, and then bringing that knowledge into this film, I think has absolutely colored my impression of him. Because yeah, in Sith alone, he's a kind of the mustache twirling. He's almost kind of cartoonish, almost. Mace even says he's a coward to run away like he always does. Those kind of things. And he's not the character that we would necessarily associate with. I mean, it's almost like they're two different characters in those two different media.
Yeah. No, they are. Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, Craig, because we just rewatched the Tartakovsky Clone Wars the other night because Dennis and I are reviewing Clone Wars again as well. And there's a very Grievous heavy episode that we'll be discussing. We are discussing, or we did discuss at this point. So, but yeah, I love what you said though about the fact that yes, he is very intimidating, but he was also made to be disposable in the way that that's exactly how Obi-Wan ends up finding his weakness is that yes, he's got all of this metal. And as you pointed out, I always laugh and cringe at the same time when Obi-Wan tries to kick Grievous as well. But yet he is, I think by design, made to be destructible and disposable with the cybernetic elements, but yet the the gut sack essentially.
So here's the follow-up question to all this. Did this make Obi-Wan seem more resourceful, wiser, more cunning as a warrior on this? Because when they rejected the idea of sending Anakin to confront Grievous, it's like we need a wiser, more experienced Jedi. Master Kenobi should go, and so they sent him, and now he was successful. Was there enough done here? And one of the reasons I'm addressing this question to you, Craig, is because you delve into these type of things on your podcast, and I really value your opinion on that. But did that come across? Did that work the way you think maybe they intended?
Man, I think so. I mean, the beginning of this segment starts with him losing his lightsaber. So he kills this guy who's masterful in lightsaber combat and has killed who knows how many Jedi. After he follows him on the Vractal and he has that whole chase, and then it's hand-to-hand combat, and then ultimately kills him with a blaster. And it's like he's showing a whole bunch of a wide range of skills that we hadn't necessarily seen from him. Whether or not Anakin would have done something different, I don't know. But I think that he definitely shows just because of the variety of attacks, shows that he's well experienced.
Okay, you just said something that made me think of a question. What if the Jedi Council had in fact sent Anakin on this mission? Do we end up with the catastrophe of this movie that we finally do? I mean, if they had said, Yoda and Mace Windu had put their ego in check for just a second and said, you know what? This guy who's been so powerful for us and done such a great job during the Clone Wars, let's send him after Grievous. He hasn't fought him yet. Obi-Wan has done so a number of times.
That's true. Yeah.
If they send Anakin after this, does Palpatine ultimately end up in a place where he can issue Order 66 and slaughter all the Jedi? I mean, again, I'm calling for speculation here. I realize that, but that's one of the things we do on this show.
Obi-Wan uses the Force to push or to force push Grievous up into the ceiling at that one point, and he comes crashing down. But again, you're on a precipice at the end. Why didn't you just throw him off and it'd be over? Like, I think Anakin would have been a lot more brutal with him. I don't think he would have shied away from that at all. So, and after having lost his lightsaber twice in Attack of the Clones, maybe he'd be a little bit more careful with his.
Good point. What do you think, Jay? How have things been different if Anakin had shown up? for
Oh
this instead.
gosh, yeah. I mean, the fact that we now know how many times Grievous and Obi-Wan have actually met up, that decision to send Obi-Wan definitely makes a lot more sense. But Anakin is, as you said, he's a lot more brutal, and I think he definitely would have been a lot more brutal. But I also think that he, like you said, Craig, to your point, that he would have used a lot more of the Force to his advantage instead of relying on, some of these other tactics and some finesse that, of course, Obi-Wan is great with, but yet, I don't know, because if Grievous would have been successful, yeah, that's a huge what if kind of thing. But I think that Palpatine, in some ways, probably manipulated that as well because he didn't want to lose his future, protege kind of thing. So
Yeah, well, it gets back to the question that we were
yeah.
talking about earlier, where
Mhm.
Palpatine planted this whole idea. Tell the council they should send you after
Right.
Grievous,
So
and the
that they
council
don't.
rejects it
Right.
because Palpatine made the suggestion, and so they send
Exactly.
Obi-Wan instead. Well, if they'd send Anakin, well, who's going to be there at the Jedi Temple to go tell Palpatine that Anakin had just engaged Grievous?
Mhm.
And so, that gave Palpatine the opportunity to make his last second sales pitch to Anakin about, save your wife, yada, yada, yada. I'm assuming Palpatine's not going to give up after that point. And probably what would have happened would have been he would have called Anakin at Utapau's like, you have to get back here as soon as possible. The Jedi are trying to take over. And whether they had captured him or not, Anakin would have showed up and Palpatine would have told him the same series of lies. It's like,
Mhm.
I'm the only one that can give you the power to save your wife, that type of thing. Help me get out of here, whatever prison cell he's sitting in, and we will reclaim the Republic and overthrow the tyranny of the Jedi, that type of a thing. This just made it more expedient for him to get to his end goal and things. So I like what if stories. What can I say?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Me too.
All right. Back at the Jedi hangar, Anakin shows up and reports to Mace Windu that they just, or actually Mace tells him that they just got the news that Obi-Wan has destroyed General Grievous, and they're on their way to make sure the Chancellor returns power to the Senate. And then Anakin's like, I'm not so sure that he's going to give up power so easily, and he says he's pretty sure that he's the Sith Lord they've been looking for. And Mace is thunderstruck by this, and he's like, a Sith Lord? I can't do a good Samuel Jackson, but there we go. And then Anakin's like, well, he knows the ways of the Force and has been trained to use the dark side. And Anakin makes the plea, you're going to need my help on this. But Mace says, you need to stay behind for your own good. I sense a great deal of confusion in you. There's much fear that clouds your judgment. If what you've told me is true, you'll have gained my trust. So, I don't know. We don't have as much time in this episode as I left as I'd like, but we got a lot to unpack. Okay, Craig,
Yeah.
what do you think about everything that's said here? It's a very short scene, but should Mace have taken Anakin with him? Two, this notion that he's now just possibly regaining his trust in light of everything else we talk about it.
Mhm.
What do you make of all this?
Yeah, you've known him for what, 14 years, and you don't trust him?
Yeah.
Yeah, he absolutely should have took Anakin with him. I mean, the fact that, and I love the way that this is set up, but it's a spoiler for what's coming next, but most people are listening to this have seen it. Anakin comes in and sees the aftermath. He doesn't see Sheev murdering Jedi Master after Jedi Master. If that happens in front of him, or maybe it doesn't happen because Anakin steps in and takes on Palpatine himself. Like, this change, like, a lot of this kind of hinges on the fact that Anakin's in the dark, in my opinion. And then Mace not trusting him. But again, I'm going to just go with Palpatine just played this whole thing. He knows that Mace Windu doesn't trust him. So he's counting on that. And he probably would have had a counter for that as well. But yeah, the fact that he keeps Anakin out of that allows for Anakin to come in and just see Mace Windu threatening Palpatine. That's the way that's his first impression. And then to try and fight that back it's going to be rough.
Right. Yeah,
What are
because
your
I think, for Anakin, I feel like, again, getting back to this idea that Anakin wants to do the right thing. Anakin wants to uphold the ideals of the light side, and he wants to turn in Palpatine as being the Sith Lord. But it's like as soon as those words come out of his mouth, you can almost see Anakin like throwing out the fishing rod and trying to like pull it back because he's in a lot of, he's on that precipice of this is the right thing to do, but oh gosh, what did I just do? Because once Mace leaves, that's when that realization hits him. And, I think as far as Mace not letting Anakin go, yeah, that is a huge tipping point, because that is the moment where Anakin does start to second guess everything, because he's not there to be able to just arrest Palpatine. Like, he's sitting there thinking to himself, well, what if this goes wrong? And, I can't control this. But again, to the point that you've both been making, as far as Palpatine controlling all of this, oh yeah, like 110%. Because I think too, if Palpatine knows that if Anakin would have gone with them, meaning Mace et al., that there's a pretty good chance that if it came to blows, that Anakin could kill him, because Anakin is that powerful.
Right. The other thing that happens is that Palpatine cannot spew his sales pitch and his lies and not risk being refuted by the Jedi in that moment. I mean, there's a couple things that could have happened here. I mean, if Mace Windu says to Anakin, "You definitely have to come. We're going to need your power. We're going to need your abilities to sort this all out," and demonstrates that trust, and doesn't say, "You will have earned my trust." In this point, basically say, "I don't trust you now, but I will." Basically confirms what Obi-Wan says earlier in this movie. It's like, be patient, Anakin. It won't be long now before the Jedi make you a master on this, and demonstrates that trust, extends that olive branch and all this. I get Mace's position on this. They've got a Jedi Knight who just threw a temper tantrum in the Jedi Council chambers not too long ago about not being made a master, who has been upset because he wasn't allowed to go on certain missions, who has kind of been the lapdog for Palpatine this entire time, and has given the Council some reasons not to necessarily trust him. But at the same time, Anakin just brought him this dark secret about this close mentor. I fear that this is the Sith we've been looking for, and he's not going to give up his power. We got to do something about this. Take him with you in this. I am a very big Mace Windu apologist. I think he gets a bad rap for a lot of things when it comes to Star Wars, whether it's the way he treats Ahsoka or other stuff in this. But this was a bad choice when it comes down to it. And I just don't know how else to say it in this situation. Which leads us right into the next scene. Anakin is sent to the Jedi Council chambers. He goes there exactly as Mace told him to. Go wait there and we'll be in touch with you. And then we get those shots where we get Anakin's point of view from there. And then we got Padme sitting back on her apartment. She's looking at the Jedi temple. He's looking back at her apartment. And then we get that voiceover for Palpatine that says, if the Jedi destroy me, any chance of saving her will be lost. And it's not said implicitly here, but what is it said explicitly is that he's kind of sensing her presence, and everything that's going on with what's going with in the context of all this. And we see that tear run down his cheek, and then he runs off to jump in a speeder to get over there as soon as possible on this. So I don't know. It's a movie that I loved when I saw it for the first time in 2005. But again, breaking it down in these segments, these moments here just shine like never before. But I talked a lot. Craig, what other impressions do you have of this scene?
I mean, Padme's ruminations, the song that is playing, the haunting soprano voice, the strings, they got a little synth in there. It's so unsettling, but yet beautiful at the same time. There's no dialogue in the scene. It's so beautifully shot. Like, I could go on and on about just how perfect that scene is. Maybe I should have said that's my favorite scene. There's so many of them. But yeah, it's just, whenever I watch this with my students, I'm like, guys, just everybody silence, just watch what's happening. There's so much to absorb as you see. Yeah. And then you did it perfectly, Dennis, like with the tear, he's trying to make a decision. Clearly it's back and forth. He's literally torn about what he's going to do. Well, metaphorically torn. And then the tear, he knows she's going to die. But my biggest question, the voiceover is that in his head, or is that Sheev talking to him? It's not clear. I don't think it has to be clear. Clearly he's going to be thinking that Anakin's going to be thinking that, whether or not that's actually being communicated to him, because that is the choice. And I love how it's subtle enough where you can miss that. It can be buried in the mix. It's not super loud, but it's just that kind of,
to your point,
just a cherry on the top.
I completely forgot about it until this viewing, and it only picked up on it this time because I had the closed captioning on. but I had not heard that in any of my previous 2 or 3 dozen viewings of this movie. So, no, you're absolutely right. Jay, what do you think of this?
I think Anakin just replaying it in his mind,
Mhm.
for the audience's benefit from that standpoint. But yeah, you talked about the acting in this movie. This is one of those points, and Craig, as you were just saying too, you tell your students, just watch this, like watch what's happening here because it's wordless, but yet that music, as you said, with the synth, and it's just dissonant, and that there's just everything is just riding on this, and the colorization of the sky, and then them looking across Coruscant at each other, and Padme just knows there's something wrong. Some people speculate that it was her, like, force sensitivity. I just think it's emotional intuition because she knows how emotionally charged he's been, and it's just that connection that the two of them share. And Anakin is panicking at this point because the fear that has been building up in him to this point has been like a dam, and the dam's about to break, and he knows, and rightfully so, that Palpatine could die, and there goes all the secrets that he needs to know. And the Jedi's pushed him away, essentially, and they're making this move that might force him to make this irreversible choice of his own.
Yeah, you bring up some good points. I like you mentioned the color of the sky. It's sunset. This
Yes.
is the sunset on Anakin's career as a Jedi. Here, he's about to make a choice. He's about to become a Sith in all this, and this is his last moments as a Jedi. And two, the emotional intuition that you're talking about comes right after, earlier in this movie, Anakin tells Padme, it's like, I feel lost.
Yes.
Not the Jedi I should be. I want more, and I know I shouldn't. The Jedi don't trust me, and this, that. And so that has to be going through her mind in
Mhm.
in these moments here. And she's very in tune with her husband there. She's known Anakin better than anyone for years and years. And at the end of this movie.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
It is. It is. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the segment. Do either of you have any other final thoughts on the past 10 minutes we just discussed?
Craig, I'll throw it to you.
I mean, again, you picked when I saw the time signature for this and I queued it up, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this part so much.
Mm-hmm.
What a great film, and just some crucial moments. I mean, it's the turning point, which is great. What's about to come up, and I love that it ends on a cliffhanger, even though it's painful. It's painful in the best possible way, but it includes some of my most favorite things. Like I said, that Padme's rumination song, like it's so haunting. The confrontation with Anakin and discovering that Palpatine is the Sith Lord, which I don't know if there were ever people that were surprised by that, but hopefully they were. It's so good. I just love it all.
Mm-hmm. Jay?
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Craig. I mean, this is, again, every time we do these, we always say how much more clarity, and there's always some epiphany, and there's always something that comes from these, and just, again, tying the threads together, whether it be with Grievous and the Clone Wars, or some of the other media that we've seen, and it's every time it just enriches the experience just that much more.
Indeed. Indeed. All right. Well, this has been fantastic. I'm really glad we got to do this. Craig, thank you so much for joining us. You always bring your A game, and this is with no exception here. We talked a little bit about your podcast during this discussion, but please remind everybody what your show is about, where they can find it, and where they can reach you.
Yeah, Reading Between the Reels. We're everywhere you listen to podcasts. New episodes every other Wednesday. By the time this drops, our first episode, most current episode, will be from our summer Star Wars series featuring you, Dennis.
Yay.
Yeah, we're talking to my kids after they do their 6-week Star Wars unit. Yeah, well, you can find us on X and Instagram, Facebook, all the places. Just look for us there. And yeah, we'd love to hear what you think about what we're doing. And we're also in the middle of a films of Christopher Nolan series. We took a break for the summer. So our last one for that would be The Prestige. And so we're going to take a long break between that and The Dark Knight, which is going to be painful, but we'll get to that in August. But yeah, we're having a lot of fun with all of those things.
Awesome.
Yeah, the Christopher Nolan series is good. The Marvel films before the MCU was also a great series. So I highly recommend everybody check that out. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it was my absolute pleasure. Like, love this movie. You guys do a great show, and I love that you guys are breaking this. And you've done all the films, breaking them down into small segments. That's awesome content. So I love it.
Thanks, Craig.
Again. All right, there you have it. That was the 6th part of our Revenge of the Sith series, featuring Craig Dickinson from Reading Between the Reels. As we were just saying a moment ago, you need to go check out that podcast if you haven't done so already. He and his co-host do a fantastic job diving into movies, so from all kinds of angles, the acting, the best moments, dialogue, camera angles, the likes. They are well versed in that type of thing, and they do a fantastic job over on that show. And this was a great discussion here. I mean, we've been talking about this for a few months now, but just the way that Palpatine laid out his plan and put it into motion to convert Anakin over to the dark side. And it's just been really cool to see how that worked in detail over the last couple of months.
Oh, yeah. And, it hurts even more now after doing these kinds of analyses, because it's just, you take it in as you watch the movie and it's like, oh, so sad, he's turning to the dark side kind of thing. But when we break them down like this, it's just, I don't know, it just hits different and it hits harder. And, even Craig said, like, he's seen this movie probably near 100 times and there's still insights to be had.
Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, every time I watch this movie, there's something else I notice, and this time was no exception. So yeah, well, another great discussion. We hope you all enjoyed it, and thank you for joining us on Podcast Stardust as we continue the series, and we'll be back next month with another episode in this series. And between now and then, we got a bunch of other stuff coming out on the podcast. So I'd encourage you to subscribe if you haven't done so already, or follow whatever it is your podcatcher calls it these days. And once you've done that, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like, review, give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or whatever your podcatcher features. That just helps others find the show. And once you've done that and you want more Podcast Stardust, head over to retrozapp.com, where you can find our entire back catalog of all previous 903 shows, which is going to be a lot more than your podcatcher is likely to carry. And there's a bunch of other great content over there as well, covering everything from geek culture, from the MCU to collecting Star Trek and the like. It's all there on retrozapp.com. Jay, remind everybody where they can find us on social media.
Absolutely. And we'd love it if you would share the show on our social media websites, which include Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. And if you are new to the show and our listener base, welcome. And we hope that you will share the show out with others, and as well as our faithful listeners that are out there as well. And we also have our Pinterest boards, which have all kinds of fun things for everything Stardust. And we also have our 2 YouTube outlets. So we have YouTube and YouTube Music. So you can head over to those, like, subscribe, and share those out. No videos on those. So you'll see a static show art image that Dennis always does a great job picking out. But all of the shows are definitely on both of those outlets. And you can also hit us up on places like Spotify and Audible as well. And then we also have a TeePublic store. So if you are in need of some new Podcast Stardust swag, or just an upgrade to your wardrobe or your home goods, we have a link in our show notes, and you can pick from one of 7 different show logo designs over there. And every purchase does help to support the show. So we hope that you will consider doing that. And once again, the link to that TeePublic store is in our show notes.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and remind everybody what you got going on with cosplay?
I'd love to. As always, you can catch me on my Instagram, which is at j.snipscosplay. And you can catch me as Ahsoka, the fourth sister, 2 different versions of Hera, so both live action and animated. And as well as my fourth sister Inquisitor, my original concept Mandalorian, based on Tahiri Vela from Legends. I also dabble a little bit in a couple different Leia versions, as well as some non-Star Wars things as well. So once again, that's at j.snipscosplay.
All right. Upcoming on the show on Friday, we'll be getting into the latest Star Wars news. And then on Monday, we are continuing our Clone Wars rewatch with a look at episode 10 from season 2. So make sure you join us for that. With all that said, thanks for listening to episode 904 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. And until next time, may the Force be with you.